I'm Johnny Weaver. I have been living in Pawleys Island since 1985. My profession is a real estate broker. I've been doing that since 1980. I've also been involved with the Wooden Boat Show, which sponsored the Maritime Museum. I'm one of the founding board members of the Maritime Museum and currently the president of the Harbor Historical Association. About 6 or 7 years ago, two friends and I decided to get our captain's license as a bucket list item. When I got my license, the school district superintendent heard about it and asked me to be the backup captain for the school bus boat for T.T. Tucker. T.T. has been doing it for 30 years. He lives on the island. He takes the children, he goes by and picks them up here, then takes the children over to the mainland to meet the school bus at 6:30 in the morning. He has never missed a day, and thankfully I have not had to be over here at 6:30 in the morning to get the children there by 6:30. Shortly after I became the backup captain, they received a grant to start a shuttle service for the residents and asked me if I would do that. Said if it doesn't interfere with my main job, that'll be fine. So I started as captain on the boat running a shuttle service for the residents over here. At 8:30, I'm back at 9 in my office at 9:15. I do another one at 2 o'clock. And that's basically what I do. Operating the school boat started out as just a real adventure. I mean, it was something to get used to, a boat that size and the way it's constructed. And I wasn't sure what to expect. I was the first off-island captain of the boat, and it took a while for everybody to kind of get used to me being on the boat. But after a few weeks, the ridership picked up. I have not, as I mentioned earlier, brought any of the children over for school, but I do come over, and at 9 o'clock, 8:30, I bring people over from the mainland to the island and then get them back by 9 in order to catch the county bus to get to their different appointments and that type of thing. The people that I bring over are generally elderly people who do not want to run their own boats anymore or don't have any boats anymore. It's too dangerous for them. And they really appreciate being able to have specific times that they can count on to leave the island, to get on the mainland, take care of their business, and then come back 2 o'clock in the afternoon and have the boat bring them back home. And some days they are just loaded up with their groceries and different things that they bought. So that has been real helpful to them. And as one of them told me this morning, she said, we can't live without this boat now that we're used to it. The best thing about ferrying them to the island and back is getting to know them. Over the past, I've been doing this for about 6 years now, and I have gotten to know the people over here on the island. You could not ask for nicer, friendlier, more wonderful people than the people who live here on Sandy Island. They are not just passengers to me anymore. They are friends. They're like family. My wife and I both have been invited to their Christmas luncheon over here. They treat both of us like family. When I was in the hospital several years ago, 3 of the children here, I know their parents, their grandparents, and their great-grandparents. The 3 children came and visited me twice in the hospital and have been in my home 2 times. And it's just a great friendship and something very satisfying to do.
My name is Laura Harriet, and I'm the owner of Wilma Cottage. I have people coming over for a day just to have a meal and a view of Sandy Island and a history of Wilma Cottage. I just want to come over for a night, and I'll give them a little history of Sandy Island, and I will feed them if they want to have meals. I'll prepare breakfast for them, lunch or dinner, and I'll give them a walk and show them the church and where I went to school at. Growing up and living in Island was different and very exciting because it was a lot of us here, and we did a bunch of stuff. We play hide and seek. We have baseball, basketball. We had a school. Growing up as a child, my grandmother raised me part of the time, and I lived with her for a while. Then I moved and came with my mother. And I had 9 brothers and sisters. I'm the youngest, so I mostly got all the bad, good and the bad things because I was living with my grandmother and I moved from a place called Georgia and I came here and then I had to learn what they were doing here, so it was like different. But anyway, I going here, I went to school with about 75 other kids and everybody got along. We didn't get to go on the other side unless somebody got sick or whatever. When we get in seventh grade, we went to Howard High School, so that was exciting. But when we did go to school, we all played together. But going back to the school, we had a spelling bee, and we were able to go to the spelling bee. And on my second trip that I went, I missed the word spell split. And I guess I thought about it because we never really got to go out with the other kids, so it was a new environment for us. But we were very quiet, never got into much trouble at school because we was always trained, to be obedient. Even though we didn't have lights here, we would always know when we do our homework and our lessons. When we come from school, we had a little chores like getting wood, getting water. I had a bad accident one time myself with the pump because I was rapid rushing to get the water and the pump knocked me out. But through it all, I didn't even go to the doctor. But growing up, we didn't have electric light. We had lamp lights. But the lamp lights, and then the thing about most all the houses had a lot of windows in, so the windows helped the light in the daytime. And we know when to do our lessons. We would come home and get our work done before, and the lamp. I guess it would be like the electric light to us in a sense, because I guess if you don't have something, you appreciate what you have. So without the electric, we still appreciate the lamp light and the God-given lights for us to see. Well, after I finished high school, I went to Columbia Commercial College in Columbia. Then my mother got sick and I came back and I stayed. And I didn't return. I didn't go back any place else. I'll go to Chicago and visit. But during the years, when I went to Columbia, it was a little different because I was able to move because I didn't have to worry about catching a boat to get across the river or anything. But I still always come back home because it was always peaceful and I was more comfortable here because I didn't worry about any danger. Growing up on the island, the water did a lot because we could go fishing, we go swimming, and that was the only way we get on the other side. The water is a blessing because we don't have to communicate with anyone if we don't want to, and the only way they can communicate with us that to come through water. Then the other blessing is when we get across the water, come to our home, we'll feel so comfortable in insurance because we know nobody can intercede on us and that. But the only danger thing would be because we have to travel it and through the storm and the rain. I guess your home is always going to be your home, and a lot of people is home, just love their home and they're going to come back. There's some that are never going to come back because someone's glad to get away, and there are some who's glad to get away when they get back and thinking, I could just stay where I was at. Things got better. Wilmore Cottage was given to me in a sense by my grandparents, and I didn't want to see it go down, so I decided to open it up to friends and family, and then it got to be a little bigger, and I had some difficulties with the roof was going down, and I had a fundraiser. Some people did that, and then I didn't have heat and air, and had a fundraiser for that, and I just enjoy it. I love people coming and serving them, and it's always open. Just call me and I'll be willing to work with you anyway when you come. For the church, when we started out, I said Sunday school. Then I became to join the church. Then I sing on the choir, and after I left and came back, I'm a Sunday school teacher. I'm assistant superintendent. I'm the church custodian, and I also have over the little kids group. The church will always be here because it's the foundation, and we have people that will never, even they have left and lived in Georgetown, Paulazala, and Myrtle Beach, they come to church. So we have full service. Family reunion originally started with two cousins in Chicago, and she was doing the Harriet and Pyatt. And she moved here with it. They were just having like a barbecue. And then she decided, well, I'm going to go home and do something, Mary Pyatt, and she started it. And then I think a couple of years they decided and just went into Sandy Island reunion. Anybody from Sandy Island, anybody who paid money, even if y'all wants to come, y'all can come. It's just an open thing. And they have like a cookout and a dinner and a church service. I learned to cook from my grandmother, looking at her. Then my sisters, them are older. And I always I guess I like red rice so much, so I just began. At first it didn't come out right, so I just kept trying and trying until I finally got it. So, and most every time somebody wants a meal prepared, they almost want me to have the red rice. Well, I identify myself as Gullah because I can't get away from it because after my four parents, that's how I came up Gullah. And what does it mean to me? You said, what does it mean to me? It means, I guess, inside a soul that will always be there. I would always follow the culture, most of it, and live through it.
My name is Vinnie Days Moore, and I was born in one part of the region of the Gullah Geechee or the Sea Island area. And basically I was born in McClellanville, South Carolina. And it took a minute for me to realize where I came from was very special. When I went to college, the different colleges I went to, then things started fitting together that we are a very unique culture. One reason, particularly my culture, was born on the Santee Delta. And through my studies at George Washington University, MUSC, and University of South Carolina, I realized we were a special culture, even though we were enslaved. We were brought to this area way back, I would say 17, really 1800, for a reason. And the reason our culture was brought from the Green Coast of West Africa was because we were rice growers, specifically for this area. I'm not talking the whole entire Gullah Geechee strain, but particularly the Santee Delta strain. And when we got here, we were nothing but virgin swamp. What we were put into was virgin swamps. And it seemed odd, but guess where they took us from in the Green Coast of West Africa? The virgin swamps. So the uniqueness of our forefather compared to us, they took those virgin swamps and turned them into rice fields in the Green Coast of West Africa. Then somehow during the colonization period, I would say late 1700 into the early 1800, the colonists, who were mainly Western Europeans, decided that they wanted to colonize that delta, that swampland, what I call the Santee Delta, but they were very disappointed. Mainly they were very disappointed, well, how in the world are you going to build a country in a swamp? And people had been all over the world, all over Africa, and a lot of people get mistaken with Africa, what Africa is. Africa is, first of all, is a continent, it's not a country. And it has many countries in it. So this particular place they were going was the Green Coast of West Africa, and somehow they had communicated, because slavery doesn't mean slavages. Matter of fact, it's a verb, not a noun. These guys are rice growers. So they were actually enslaved out of West Africa and eventually brought here to this area of the wetlands, the virgin wetlands. And when they got here, I'd say it took them, and I don't want to take so much time about rice growing, but a lot of people don't understand the transition. Like somewhere like Sandy Island, they were placed here, and their duty is to change those virgin swamps into rice fields, and exactly what they did. And because of changing it to the rice fields into rice fields, their owners, which mainly were Western Europeans, got to be extremely wealthy, and therefore, and I always tell people this way because they still cannot understand the transition. When the Western Europeans went to get the Western Green Coast Africans, they brought one, the Africans, who are rice growers, number two, the African rice, and number three, I don't know, by mistake or whatever, they brought the African mosquito. And the African mosquito happened to have malaria from Africa. So even though the West Africans, like here in Sandy Island, knew their rice, but the people who bought them or brought them here as enslaved people, they couldn't even live on Sandy Island or the marshes around Sandy Island because they would die of malaria. What changes the story is emancipation. Because one planter, and I'm not start talking about Sandy Island, because thousands of West African rice growers were brought over, thousands, mainly to Georgetown County and Horry County. Emancipation Proclamation happened because one planter would own anywhere between 1,000 500, 1,000 enslaved rice growers. So what does emancipation do to these guys, the owners? They're going to get broke. Because if they use these guys for rice growing, they're breaking the law. And we're now today, I must admit, I don't know when this is going to show, but we are celebrating this day, Juneteenth. That's part of that story, where Africans are freed and no longer slave. So the interesting thing with everything was a transition. I think what I'm most amazed, and every transition is somewhat different. One of the main transition here in Sandy Island, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to figure out, we're broke after the war. You know, we go through Emancipation Proclamation, we go through the war, the Civil War, and we have nothing. We, the planter, has nothing. So I can imagine one of the planter's wives said, honey, what in the world are we going to do now? We have no money after, you know, it's against the law for us to enslave these rice growers. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to sell these lands to wealthy Northerners. What? Why would you sell all the swamp to wealthy Northerners? Because they are going to make bird hunting clubs. The rice fields that we had built as West Africans that now we are free. Nobody, let me explain real quickly so people understand what this rice field is all about. It's puff mud. So when all these 1,000 people are taken away, we can't bring cows in here. We can't put tractors in here. Only hands and feet, 1,000 hands and feet. So you don't have 1,000 hands and feet. So that's what can wipe it out. So why in the world would you get wealthy Northerners? The birds were flying around all the time, by the way. They were a nuisance earlier. But when they come in, like the Huntingtons, by the way, they're ones that would be coming in as bird hunters from the north. They're going to totally, this was a haven for migratory birds. And all the time when I think about and I'm saying Northerners because Barus were not Northerners. When I say Northern, I mean a style of culture or style of occupation. When they come into these rice fields, guess what they do? Like you go into a hotel and somebody buys your hotel out. What do they do with that hotel? Change the color of the wall. That's it. These rice fields are already perfect design for migratory birds. And people like the Huntingtons, and I must take my hat off to them, they did more than just made bird hunting club. They made amazing gardens. And the people that were laid off for rice growing end up being hired to help the Huntingtons build their gardens. By the time me, the planter, loses my possibility of having these rice fields, it's on high ground. Everything is going great. But that emancipation taking 1,000 workers from me that work in the swamp mud, that's crashed it. Now, as far as it going out, I already said, no, it's not going, no, it's getting higher. But again, a lot of people, and I have this all the time when I talk about people about slavery. Slavery is not a job. It's enforced labor. So you have somebody that you enforce or enslaving, or I think the best word I could come up with is enforced labor. Are you going to turn around and hire them? No, because you never had them in that position in the beginning. Matter of fact, in a lot of our history, early history book, it was told to us that these people were savages, which, as I just told you, they were not savages, they were rice growers. So I don't believe, not say there was not some affection, I do know there is some attachment back and forth to this population of enslaved cultures. But no, that was not, life don't turn over that fast. And I think with what we're going through Juneteenth, we'll find out that life took 3 years. Life don't turn over overnight. And who's going to benefit? Not the people who are being punished or mistreated. I hope that answers that to you. And I think the only saving grace was the Northerners coming in, giving them jobs where they didn't have the same mentality of having an enslaved culture. And I think in some ways they did feel like they did, but not to the extent that the Southerners thought they had enslaved cultures. And I'm going to put one little sweet dime on here. They were planters or Europeans that became family members of, or the Africans became family members to them. So there was not all never touch me or never become my family. That was a kind of mix up in that. And I'm hoping I'm not going too deep into the X zone. But people end up marrying each other, not marrying, but becoming family. I'll put the word there. So there was that connection, but it was more of that connection versus, oh my goodness, finally going to treat them like the best workers I've ever had, and I'm going to start paying them. I don't think that ever came to be. That swamp rice is pretty much gone, except for the nice Africans that want to continue to grow that rice. But from that, our next stage of rice growing is going to be the bank rice. Totally different from the African rice. So that's where you're going to see the hype, is the bank rice. The swamp rice is going down, 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 because the only way that could be grown is in swamp. And I always tell people, I got to make one joke in this. So it wouldn't seem, I didn't mean to be so heavy. But one joke, and I went out to Tranquility with one of the rice fields, because every rice field has a name. But one rice field is about the size of a football field. So Dr. Poche was doing some research and figuring out how these rice fields are grown. So he takes me out in the puff mud, and I almost drowned in it. And he told me to lay flat on my stomach so he could drag me out with a cane, because there's a lot of cane plants out there. Drag me out with a cane so I wouldn't die. And I went and told my mother, which used to be a rice grower. I said, Mom, guess what? I was out in Tranquility today. She said, you were where? I said, in Tranquility. And she said, don't you ever tell me again you ever go back out there again, because you can die out there. Do you know we lost whole cows out there? How dangerous it is to be in a swamp? We've lost whole cows. So it wasn't a great place to be, even if you're getting paid. Sandy Island seems to be a world apart. World apart in several ways. One, the way we get here is only by boat. And the second is how much Sandy Island have maintained through generations. Even with me, last time I was here was 20 years ago in my research. By the way, I did my research here for about 5 years. And then about 10 years later, I come back. And then I see it again. And then another 10 years, I come back and I see it again. It amazes me how the Sandy Islanders can hold on to their customs and their traditions. And I guess you said, well, you know, that anybody could build a house, anybody could do this. But when it really hit me in my face that Sandy Islanders are keeping up with tradition, is when I went to Africa. I went to the Grain Coast of Africa in Guinea. And I knew the way these houses were built were different. Not even like McClellan. They built the dimension, the demographics. It's all different. And then I go to Guinea. I go into the tribal village of Guinea. Guess what? Their huts, not houses, sometimes you'll call them, are the dimension or the demographics is the same. That's saying all this. These Sandy Islanders have not lost a lot what they brought from Africa. And that's from the way they build their villages or their homes on Sandy Island, to the way they cook red rice, okra, the way they speak, the way they have kinship. That's African. And one thing else that people don't realize, we have gone back to, a lot of people don't know this, I got a secret to tell you. Yeah. We went back to Africa after the rice growing was over. You ever hear of Sierra Leone and all those places? That was the New Africa. And when we went to the New Africa, Sierra Leone, we brought that gullah back. So the people that are African in Sierra Leone, the new country, are speaking Gula, which is again another version of our gullah. But they were African returning back to Africa, enslaved Africans returning back to Africa after emancipation. We all did not stay here. And we created another country called Sierra Leone.